This is a 25 millimeter or a 1-inch radius dowel of Derlin. This was sent to me by Don Peters, and I just finished putting the small jaws on my chuck. I've got a project that I want to turn with this. Let me get started and I'll come back and show you the progress. I need to make a correction. I just looked back at the note. This is pronounced Derlin, D-E-L-R-I-N. It reminds me more of a UHMW than an HDPE because it's very hard. So now that we know what it's called and how it's spelled, let me get to turning. I have my dowel chucked up, and what I want to do is start by truing it up, and then I want to take and turn it to the diameter of the top of this number 2 Morse taper. I'll measure down 1.5 inches, I'll get that diameter, and I'll turn the back half of it to that diameter, and then we'll taper this down so that it fits nicely into the Morse taper slot of my headstock or tailstock. With the top and the bottom dimensions of my taper marked, now I just want to take this material down so I've got a nice slope that mimics the slope of the number 2 Morse taper. I've got this turned down to the point where I'm ready to test it in the number 2 Morse taper slots. I think I'm ready to remove it from the chuck, and then I'm going to chuck this up in the headstock, and we're going to go ahead and turn down the other end the same exact way. Not too bad, not too bad at all. I've got a pretty tight fit in the headstock, even though I didn't taper it enough for it to go all the way back in. That's not 100% necessary for what we're going to be doing. I'm going to go ahead right now and I'm going to true this blank up, and then we're going to turn down this half of the blank to be a Morse taper to fit into the tailstock. I tried trimming this side down a little harder than I trimmed this one in hopes that I'll get a little better fit. And if I do, I can always flip this around and take a little more meat off this side. So what we're going to work on now is just making sure we get a good fit headstock and tailstock. Okay, now that's perfect. So what I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and flip this around. We're going to clean this side up a little bit, and then we've got it. I've got this turned down exactly how I want it. It tapers into the headstock and the tailstock. Now it is kind of a loose fit, but that's not going to be a huge deal because what I'm going to use this for is I'm going to use it to press pin kits together. So it doesn't have to fit tightly, it just needs to fit in both parts of the lathe. So what we want to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and bring the tailstock up, we'll lock it down, I'm going to true this center section up, and then we're going to cut. I don't need all of this. I'll probably part it off right about here and then right about here. So we'll have a little section in the center that I can use for something else, but that'll give me the two pieces that I need to press a kit. I'm going to measure back about, let's say 5/8 of an inch. Now what we'll do is I'll go ahead and part this off. Now what I'll do is I'll come back and I'm going to part it off right here, and then we'll bring the tailstock back up and we'll part it off right here. I put a 7/32 inch bit in my Jacobs chuck, and since this was a little smaller, the taper was a little smaller than the actual Morse taper on my lathe, I'm using a little blue tape to kind of hold it and keep it from slipping. Now what I want to do is just drill a hole about 1/2 of an inch to 3/4 of an inch into this piece. I've chucked up the other half, and I've also wrapped a little blue tape around it to keep it from slipping. And what I want to do now is just clean the face of it up. As I cleaned it up, I also dimpled it just a tiny bit. With this tool, I've just turned my lathe into a pin press. The end with the hole will go into the headstock. I'll put the nib in there. I'll put this into the tailstock, lock my tailstock down, and then as I crank the handle of my lathe, I can press the pin together. To press the pin together with this new lathe-based pin press. We're going to take our blank, and there's the picture of the dog. So we're going to make this the cap and this the nib end. First thing we want to do is insert this threaded grommet into the front end of the pin. So we simply lock our tailstock down and we crank forward on the tailstock, and you can see we have a beautiful fit. Look at that, absolutely gorgeous. We're going to back our tailstock off. We're going to grab the cap or slash clip assembly. I'm going to turn to the back of this pin, and I'm going to place the clip assembly over the seam in the pin so that you do not see it. And now we'll press it together. I'm just being very careful. With this, you can apply very minute amounts of pressure, but you also want to make sure you don't apply too much pressure. Get that up there where you can see it. There we go. Beautiful fit. Let's go ahead and insert the nib of the pin, or thread the nib of the pin on. I've placed the spring on the refill, and I'm going to drop it into the back of the pin. The transmission gets threaded into the pin. We snap the cap in place. Check the action on the pin. Beautiful. We have a gorgeous pin, and we've just proven that these lathe bushings, press bushings, are perfect for assembling pins at your lathe. Now, the main reason I made these, you can see how easily they move in and out of the tailstock as well as the headstock. I initially was upset thinking, oh my gosh, you know, I didn't cut that right. I didn't leave it thick enough to where it had a tight fit. And then I got to thinking, I really prefer the loose fit, because when I'm done, I don't have to worry about knocking them out. I can just grab them and pull them right out. The main reason I made these is for travel. I've been going and turning pins on location, and it's a pain to drag a great big pin press. So basically, I can throw these in top of my toolbox, and any lathe with a number 2 Morse taper, I can press pins together on site. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you found it useful and informative. If you do not have a pin press for your lathe, I hope that you consider maybe making a set of these so that you can press pins together right at your lathe. I use Derlin, but bear in mind you could use UHMW or HDPE. It will not matter. I'd like to thank you for joining me in the shop tonight. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon. Have a great evening, everybody.